Hey, Michael with XForce PC, talking about our new dual display touch package. And this is going to replace what used to be our quad screen touch package. And so what we've done here is, instead of using three 27-inch monitors, we're using this one super ultra wide 49-inch curved display. Now, it might not look that tremendous the way where I'm sitting, because I'm much closer to you than this monitor is. I'm reaching as far as I can reach, and I'm still not touching the monitor. So I'm a good deal closer to you than the monitor. Again, it is 49 inches diagonally, so it's a monster, and when people walk in the room, they're like, whoa, wow, what is that? So it really makes a statement. Now, the reason we're going with a 49 ultra wide here instead of the 327s is it gives you nearly the amount of lateral view, but only one display. And there's several positives that come along with doing that. Number one, it's one display instead of three. And the graphics card has the ability to hook up 4 displays. And so you've just freed up 2 display ports by going with the 49 ultra wide. It also makes the setup less complicated because you're dealing with 1, 2 displays instead of 1, 2, 3, 4 displays. So the setup is a little bit easier. Now, I mentioned saving monitor connections. That's because one thing that's good about that is it would allow you to add the 430 or the 530 from Real Sim Gear. Each of those devices takes up a monitor connection. And so we do have the ability on the checkout page where you could add a 430 or a 530 if you wanted to, or both from Real Sim Gear. And that's, again, one of the options on the configuration page for this system. So next we're going to talk about all the individual components that come along with this. Okay, so let's talk about some of the pieces and the parts. I mentioned earlier we've got a 49-inch super ultra wide. This thing is 3840 by 1080 is the resolution. And we have a little stand back here that we are going to include with it that puts it right up just at the perfect height so that it lines up nicely with the touchscreen. So that brings me to the touchscreen. We have a 1080p, that's full HD, touchscreen. And it's nice because it sits down on the tabletop nice and low and has a kickstand. And so that's what it's leaning against right now, is the kickstand. And of course this allows you to, I've got the thing flying itself, but yet it's still letting me turn the knobs. But you can take and, you can turn these knobs. And I'm changing the heading bug right now. And you can use touch to do that. And so it's kind of nice to not have to reach for the mouse. Whenever you want to change something, you can just go and touch the screen. You can change the frequencies on the radios and all that good stuff. Now, the next thing that's here is pretty obvious, is the Logitech yoke. We do give you the ability to delete this if you already have a yoke, or if maybe you wanted to have a Yoko instead. In the same box with the yoke comes this 3-lever throttle quadrant. So pretty much if you delete the yoke or you get the yoke, the throttle comes along with it or goes along with it. We also have some Logitech Pro Flight pedals. Again, we give you the ability to delete those if you so choose, if you wanted to go with something higher end like Ruddo pedals or something else. Of course, we have a wireless keyboard and mouse. That's no big deal. And then we have a really nice gaming computer. It's essentially our RTX system upgraded with the RTX 2070 graphics card with 8 gigs of VRAM. It's got 16 gigs of system memory, which is plenty. It's got an i5, which some people kind of get concerned about sometimes, like, well, what about the i7? But the i5 is running at 4.8 gigahertz. And that's really the same speed that that we run our 9700K, the i7 at. The only thing that the i7 really gives you is hyperthreading, and I'm not going to go into a detailed analysis of hyperthreading here, but bottom line is hyperthreading really doesn't make much of a difference in gaming in almost all cases. So you really don't get much of a performance benefit, if any, by going with the i7, but if you do want the i7, you can call us and we can give you the ability to add that. let's see, we've got a 1 terabyte SSD. So a lot of companies will give you an SSD, but they'll give you like a 250 gig SSD and then a mechanical hard drive to go along with it. For us, I like to see one big hard drive, and that being an SSD. So everything runs on the solid state drive. Solid state drives are way faster. They make the machine boot up very, very quickly. And it just makes a huge difference in the overall experience of using the system to have an SSD. And let's see, I think that's pretty much everything with the PC. So next we'll talk about some of the things you can do with the system. So as I mentioned, you know, it comes with a touchscreen, and that's kind of the, if you're not looking at the 49, the touchscreen is kind of the focal point of what you're looking at. Here we're running the Cessna 172. Now you do have to buy a program called Air Manager. Air Manager is what puts the instruments here, and we preload it, but the first time you launch it, it's going to ask you to put your key in, and so you will have to go and buy that from Sim Innovations. It costs 65 pounds at the time of this recording, which I think is around $80 or $75, something like that. So do bear that in mind. They have a number of free panels, pre-made panels, but this happens to be a premium panel. This is a Cessna 172 premium panel. It's just a little fancier than the free Cessna 172 panel, and I think it costs maybe like an extra $15. It's totally worth it if you fly the 172. They also have a free Baron panel, and you can make it auto switch. When you start up the Baron, you can have it automatically switch panels, which I have it set up to do. And so once we load the Baron up here, you're going to see it switch to the Baron panel. Now these panels can be customized. You can build your own panel a la carte. They have hundreds of free instruments, and you just drag and drop these instruments wherever you want. And then once you're done dragging and dropping your instruments, then you lock them in place. And that way, when you're using the touch screen, you're not dragging your instruments all over the place. See, I'm not able to drag the instruments around. And so that's the purpose of locking them in place. I'm not going to go into a deep dive on Air Manager, but again, the bottom line is you can fully customize your own panel if you have something special that you fly. They have a simple 6-pack panel, a lot of different panels that come with this. So one final note about the system, I mentioned that you could add a Garmin 430 or 530 from Real Sim Gear, and so you could just, I'm just going to set this over here. Let's say you wanted a 430, 530 combination, or you could just get the 530 or just get the 430. And so we'll have that as an option on the product page, or you could add it later. You could add it 6 months down the road if you want to. It just adds to the realism. All the buttons, you know, are tactile. The knobs feel really nice, and it just is an altogether well put together product. And so if you're using a 430 or a 530 or both heavily, then it's a really nice thing to have as an accessory. So there you go. There's an overview of the dual display super ultra wide package from XForce.